Today, on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., there have been several hearings regarding anti-Semitism on campus. Anti-Semitism has exploded all over campuses across the United States, North America, and Europe. However, I want to talk today about the anti-Semitism you probably are not aware of, which is the most insidious, outrageous, and dangerous one. The greatest act of anti-Semitism in the past 16 months, obviously, this is not talking about the violent ones, but in terms of what was said, is not necessarily the loud riots. It's not necessarily the offensive things that were said. It's not one hateful thing or the other that was said. The most insidious element of anti-Semitism in the past 16, 17 months has been the silence. The silence of people who say we do not engage with the Zionists. The same people who oppose anti-Semitism laws and say, oh, we should figure it out through talking, through dialogue, are the people who will not talk to Jews, who will not talk to Zionist Jews, who will not talk to Zionist Christians, or whoever it may be, Zionist Muslims, anybody. The point is, the most vile act of hate, which most represents what was happening in Germany in the 1930s, was disappearing the Jews, making sure that no one talks to Jews, no one does business with Jews, no campus has Jews, the Jews just figure out that they just need to quietly leave. That is the worst kind of anti-Semitism possible. Any educator, any parent, any person who's aware of what goes on in the world of children knows that the worst thing that can be done to a child is not the regular, mean things that kids can say. The worst possible thing, which unfortunately still happens in some schools, is when all of the kids decide not to invite a certain child, not to talk to a certain child, not to sit next to a certain child, not to engage with a certain child. That is the most vile, hateful, and rampant anti-Semitism taking place today. That's what's happening. It's not the screaming here or there. It's not what's being said here or there. It's the isolation. It's the targeted isolation. It's the dehumanization of people who stand with Israel to the extent that they will not talk to us. That is the worst form of anti-Semitism. They believe in talking with people from North Korea. They believe in talking with people who support the IRGC regime in Iran. They support people who support the greatest threats to humanity possible. But they will not talk to us. They will not talk to Zionists. And that is the most insidious form of anti-Semitism. And now I turn to the people who should know better. Jewish people who are partnering with such anti-Zionism, Jewish people who are engaging, tolerating, and even joining this reprehensible, unforgivable, and frankly cruel form of anti-Semitism. They won't say anything bad. They won't say anything mean. They won't do anything to you. They will simply cut Zionists off. They will make sure that Zionists are not included in events. And frankly, that is their stated goal. They say this. Dangerous leaders, whether it was yesterday someone from the Council of American Islamic Relations, whether it's the domestic terrorist from the organization called Within Our Lifetime in New York that said this, whoever it may be, this idea of isolating is key to their ideology. Why? Because while one or two or three or four people will speak out and still be brave enough to stand for the truth, even though they pay a social price, most people are going to look around and say, I don't want to be the not cool kid. I don't want to be the person out. And so they'll just toe that line. And that's a cowardly and sad situation. So the Jews who join this, that to me is just mind-boggling. Do you not see what's happening here? Excuse the pun. Do you not see what's going on when they really just try to isolate? I can see when there are anti-Israel protests on campus, there's this talk of, oh, all the cool kids, they literally say this, it's like middle school and below. Oh, all the cool kids are going to be there. Oh, all the hot people are going to be there. Oh, all the good-looking people are going to be there. What do you think that is? It's a nice way of being extraordinarily cruel, of doing exactly what was done to Jews in the 1930s. Oh, it's okay. You can go to university in Poland in the 1930s. You just need to sit in the back of the class. You can walk in the street in Germany in the 1930s. You just need to wear a yellow star. You can take the trolley in Germany. You just have to go in a separate cart. That is the cruelty of anti-Semitism. That's what's happening on campuses. And that's what we need to speak out against. We all know what Elie Wiesel was hurt most after the Holocaust. What hurt him the most? He wasn't talking about the Nazis of Auschwitz. He wasn't talking about Eichmann or Mengele or the monsters that executed 6 million Jews. He was talking about the silent people, the silent friends of yours that suddenly go silent and do not speak out against evil. And that's what's happening on campuses. And now I want to get to the issue at hand. Everyone's saying, well, how much anti-Semitism is there on campus? Oh, it's only 1 or 2 or 3 students that seem to be affected. Oh, only that Jewish student was attacked. The point is not the student that was attacked. The point is not the student who is isolated or targeted. The point are the many students who look and say, I don't want to be signaled out like that. I don't want to have to pay a social price to be who I am. I don't want to be the one who's the odd man out. That's what's going on. So when they attack 1, 2, 3 students on campus, the proud students who are able to have a yarmulke, who are able to stand with an Israeli flag, who are able to say, you know what, I believe in the right of 7 million Jews to live, to exist in the land of Israel. I don't believe we will suddenly make them disappear. That's not something I would ever comprehend or agree with. That's not the issue. The issue is everyone looking at that student, at what's done to them, and they're saying, okay, I don't want to be like that student. So if you are on campus, think about that for a moment, about the impact that your silence is having. And more importantly, it's time to think about the movement as a whole. It's time for academics to reckon with the fact that a mass mob has decided to isolate, to bully, and to ostracize the Jewish people who are willing to stand for Israel. It's time to speak out against that. And when Congress investigates anti-Semitism on campus, that has to be a key element of it. The fact that those who are advocating this agenda, a genocidal agenda seeking the destruction of Israel, also, as they state, seek to isolate, to make it socially unacceptable to stand with Israel, to make it socially unacceptable for Jews to embrace a core element of our identity, which is our connection to the land of Israel, our connection to our brothers and sisters in Israel, and it's the conditioning, the social conditioning saying, if you want to be part of academia, if you want to be part of people that are socially acceptable on campus, you must renounce your support for Israel. That's what needs to be looked at. And the same way that the federal government is now saying, okay, we need a diversity of thought on campus, that also has to include a diversity for strong, outspoken Zionism. It has to be that a certain portion of professors on campus are proudly Zionists, because we've seen in the past few days thousands of Jewish professors sign a letter against ICE detention in support of the vicious anti-Semite from Colombia, Mahmoud Khalil. We've seen thousands of Jewish professors do that. Now, let me ask you a question. Okay, I can accept the fact that thousands of Jewish professors agree that detentions are bad and agree that what was done to Mahmoud Khalil is unacceptable. Let me ask you a question. Where's the counter letter? Did you not see over the past 17 months, are there not 10, 20, 30 Jewish professors that are willing to say enough? 670% anti-Semitism increasing on campus is just something we need to speak out against. Where are the Jewish professors who are willing to stand with Mahmoud Khalil, but are not able to say, hello, what's going on? Why is there a 670% increase in anti-Semitism on campus? And the answer is because they look around and they read the room. They read the room, they understand that this is not the way to behave here. If you're on campus, follow the mob. And if you don't follow the mob, there will be a price to pay. And so there's been a silencing by choice, indeed. No one held a gun to these professors' head, but there's a silencing of people willing to say Israel has the right to defend itself. Jews have the right to live proudly on campus. And yes, a core part of Jewish identity is to believe in our connection to the state of Israel, to the land of Israel, to the people of Israel. And there hasn't been that voice loud and clear. And I don't necessarily blame those professors who choose to be silent because they read the environment around them and it's a scary environment. But we need to make sure that on campuses, professors and students are able to proudly say, we are Zionists, we stand with Israel. And it's unconscionable that we can have 3,000-4,000 Jewish academics signing for Mahmoud Khalil, but 10. You cannot have 10 signing that they oppose anti-Semitism, that they want the hostages to return, that Israel has the right to defend itself. We don't see that letter. And the reason is because of the hostile climate on campus. That needs to come to an end. We need to make sure that everyone is able to be pro-Israel if they want and not to pay a price. We need to counter the insidious and viciously anti-Semitic trend of isolating Jews, of turning Zionism into a pariah, in turning a state that exists since 1948 into some kind of error that they pretended it is, and to making sure it is clear no university will get $1 of taxpayer funds if they continue to isolate Jewish people, if they continue to isolate Zionists. If Jewish professors sign, if 4,000 Jewish professors sign for Mahmoud Khalil, frankly, that's an indictment of academia. I hold that against academia. Why? If you have a situation where 4,000 Jewish professors are willing to sign against ICE deportations in favor of someone as evil as Mahmoud Khalil, and at the same time you cannot get 10 professors signing for the release of the hostages, for Israel to defend itself, against the fact that anti-Semitism on campus has risen by 670%, that's a problem with academia. That means Jewish professors are afraid. That means they feel like there's a gun to their head. They won't admit it. They won't admit that the reason they're signing for Mahmoud Khalil, but they will not speak out against anti-Semitism or for the hostages, is because their environment is so hostile to Jews, to Zionism, to Israel, that they're just afraid. They won't admit it. But we need to make sure we do the math and say why. Why are they signing for an anti-Semite and not for Israel? That means anti-Semitism has become so corrosive, threatening, and destructive on campus that these professors are afraid. They're afraid to speak out, and we need to stop that. Universities must be held accountable. It has to be clear that every campus has professors that are openly Zionist, proudly Zionist, that there are students that are happy to walk around with their Star of David, with an Israeli flag, and that they know that that's something that's acceptable. And to the cowards who are quiet when they watch everyone become isolated, when they see what's being done to the Jewish people, I'm not here to speak out against you. I'm here to speak for you and tell you, speak out now. It's time for you to save your character, to salvage your reputation, and to account for history what you did when this targeting attack on the Jewish people has taken place.